Terry Gunny, Terry.
What's the news, Leslie?
Umoja. It is the day of unity, the first day of Kwanzaa, and it means we help each other.
It is very fitting that unity is the first principle of Kwanzaa, though.
Yes, indeed it is. And it is our wonderful privilege today to welcome our community on behalf of the State College NAACP to our virtual Kwanzaa celebration.
Indeed, indeed. And as we get started, it is our tradition to begin our meeting and events with the Black National Anthem. Of course, I'm talking about Lift Every Voice and Sing, written by our former NAACP leader, James Weldon Johnson, and set to the music by his brother because of its powerful and the voice that cry for liberation and affirmation for the African American people.
Yeah, this song is a prayer of thanksgiving for faithfulness and freedom. And so it gives me great pleasure for today's contribution is being performed on flute by my very own 17-year-old Alana Lang. Please play it
Take, a,
for us, Terry.
take away, Ilana. That was a treat, and it was so wonderful to have several familiar faces participate in the 7 days of Kwanzaa.
Yeah, Terry. Throughout the week, we're going to post a series of videos submitted by our community members, both near and far, and they're going to represent the 7 principles of Kwanzaa.
Now, I know you've been busy because I hear that you reached out to not just people locally, but also some of our former Penn Staters as far as Atlanta, South Carolina, and even folks in Minnesota. So, wow.
Indeed, I did. I have curated a montage of video submissions that will showcase faculty, staff, student orgs, and children throughout our week's festival and festive celebration.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Well, let's talk and explore some of these principles of Kwanzaa. And I would like to remind the viewers to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our State College NAACP page on YouTube so you get the notifications of our video premieres, especially throughout this week.
Exactly. We want them to remember to do that. Kwanzaa is an evolving tradition. It's been around for a long time, one that gives shape and meaning, and it resonates with our NAACP mission to secure political, educational, social, and economic equality for all persons. Kwanzaa is an African American celebration that was established in 1966 by Dr. Maulana Karanga, a scholar and social activist. And Kwanzaa celebrates African American harvest, and it's based on beliefs and values of traditional African customs. It's celebrated every year annually, December 26th, and it lasts for 7 days, so it goes through till New Year's. And Kwanzaa means first fruits in Swahili, and that's the chosen language of Kwanzaa. And the extra A, Terry, was added to give the name 7 letters, one for each of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa.
Nice.
And I don't think our viewers know that Kwanzaa is actually an original African American holiday. And the principles were really intended to build strong families and communities and give us an opportunity to reflect on our cultural values. And of course, we always sing songs, we tell stories, and we have dancing. And it's been the cornerstone of Black culture for forever. So, our first video today illustrates the setting of the table by NAACP member Tiara Williams. Would you share that setup for us, Terry?
Absolutely.
Hey all, today I'm going to show you how to decorate your very own Kwanzaa table. Come on with me, let's take a look. First, you start off with a blank table, and then you can find African print cloth or any type of cloth that you have at your home. Next, we have the mat, or in Swahili we say mkeka. As you can see, the mat is there to protect the cloth from the drippings of your candle. Next, we put down our candle holder, which is called our kanara, and our 7 candles, the Mashuma Saba. As you can see, you have 3 red candles, 1 black candle, and 3 green candles. These are the colors of Kwanzaa and also represent the Pan-African flag. Next, we put down our unity cup, or our kikombe che umoja. Next, you will put down the crops, or mazo, and vabunzi, which is an ear of corn. You would use 1 ear of corn for every child in your house. These are just fake fruits to show you, but during Kwanzaa, you put real fruits to offer to the ancestors. Last but not least, you will put your gifts down, or your zawadi. Most people who celebrate Kwanzaa trade gifts on the 1st, the last day of Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a holiday about giving. It's not a holiday where you burn your pockets out. So if you don't have some of these things at your home, please don't worry and don't go out and spend a lot of money. If you just have 1 red candle, 1 black and 1 green, that's fine. If you don't have any fresh crops, that's okay. Kwanzaa is about the spirit, not the materials. To personalize my Kwanzaa table, I first add African dolls and African toys. I make sure to have the Nguzo Saba, or the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, always listed on the table. I always grab some type of literature and put it on the table that represents Kwanzaa. I also make sure to add a personal music touch. This is a thumb piano that was made in Kenya. I also make sure to have sage for the ancestors to light the world. Last but not least, you add the African flag. And this is my finished Kwanzaa table. I hope you guys enjoy my Kwanzaa setup. Have a great holidays and happy Kwanzaa.
See, that is a lot of great information, and it's so nice to see our dear sister Tierra Williams give us some information on how to set up our Kwanzaa table. There's a lot of information in that video really had in it, including the mat. Um, Now, again, I'm not as fluent as my dear sister Tierra in pronouncing the Swahili language, but I would give it Wakolio a good cause try, right? So there's
We're
the
going to teach
and
everybody to say it.
absolutely. So the mkeka, which is
Mkeka.
I got it right, excellent. So that's the mat that she used that really represents the foundation. The other one was the candle holder that had a 7 candles, which was called the kenora. Is that correct? Kenora.
Kanara. Hmm.
Kenora, I'm getting there. All right. Then the corn for each child, representing our hopes and our future. The muhindi,
Correct.
All right. You know what? This is getting better. And followed by that was the bowl of fruit and vegetables representing the harvest of working together. The mazahu, mazaho,
Mazao. Yeah.
mazaho. Okay. The unity cup, which I really did struggle with that one. I know that once we get our sister on, she'll help me with this one, of course. Um, then she talked about the red and the black and the green flag, the Banara Ya Taifa, and then last is a few gifts, books, heirlooms, anything that really allows you to exchange stuff on the seventh night. Now, the one thing I did like about it, she did mention if you don't have it in your bank, don't try to break your bank to do these things, but just use what you have. So that's a really important piece.
That's right.
Um,
And zawadi is just the gifts that you exchange, and they can also be handmade, which we encourage our children to do all the time.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, yeah. And the most important thing was the Nguzu Saba, the 7 principles, which we're going to explore today because it's Umoja for unity.
Now, Umoja, that's one I can definitely say. Now, organizations like the NAACP is a great example of our first principle of unity, Umoja. Our advocacy, civil engagement, and our collective works enhances the capacity of African Americans and other underserved groups through education, asset building initiatives, diversity and inclusion, business hiring practices, even our unity rally against racism and community building efforts all point to unifying for the betterment of our community.
Yes, the betterment of our community. It calls us to strive for and to maintain unity in our families, the community, our nation, and our race. Unity calls for us to stand in solidarity with the oppressed and to march arm in arm with those who are suffering and struggling. Kwanzaa emerged from inequality, injustice, and police brutality during the 6 days of the Watts riot in 1965 in Los Angeles. And I think we have a clip to share.
Absolutely. So check this out.
Now, you may have heard of Kwanzaa, that celebration that coincides with Christmas and Hanukkah. You may have even been to a Kwanzaa celebration. In the 80s and 90s, Kwanzaa was everywhere. But do you really know what this holiday's about and why it started? Let's jump back a few decades. In 1965, tensions between black communities and law enforcement reached a boiling point, and Los Angeles saw the most violent urban riot in 20 years. As the Watts riots unfolded around him, LA-based PhD student and activist Maulana Karenga saw an opportunity to restore unity in black communities and foster African American cultural institutions, values, and traditions. So in 1966, Karenga created Kwanzaa with the purpose to help connect black Americans to their African roots and with each other in the face of marginalization. In fact, the name Kwanzaa even comes from a Swahili phrase, Matunda ya Kwanzaa, meaning first fruits. Karenga decided that this new holiday should fall in the 7-day period between Christmas and New Year's. He even added a second A on the end of Kwanzaa to represent each of these 7 days. Each day represents a different principle: unity, self-determination, collective responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. During Kwanzaa, Karenga wanted communities to celebrate by gathering together to light candles and to join in a huge communal feast called Karamu, inspired by a Zulu harvest celebration. Every celebration is different, but generally, families come together to light a kinara, read poetry, and dance to traditional African songs. Karenga traveled the country spreading the word about this new holiday. It then gained momentum through schools and colleges, and pretty soon, families started adopting Kwanzaa into their yearly celebrations. At first, many African American Christians were opposed to Kwanzaa, as they didn't want it to be a replacement for Christmas. But as Kwanzaa became more popular in the late 1960s, black churches began to embrace it, and the holiday became a supplement rather than an alternative to Christmas. Some churches even organized Kwanzaa celebrations. But Kwanzaa really took off in the 1970s as the black middle class started to grow. After the 1964 Civil Rights Act outlawed race-based discrimination in employment, the number of African American middle-income earners increased dramatically and continued to grow into the 1980s and 90s. As black families started to move into white suburban areas, they began to feel isolated, and Kwanzaa became a way for them to reconnect to their history and culture. By 1995, the holiday was celebrated by an estimated 10 million Americans, compared to just a few hundred when it was founded. With Kwanzaa's cemented popularity, it didn't take long for corporate America to notice. By the mid-1990s, an entire industry had formed around the holiday. Companies like Heineken even created an advertisement around Kwanzaa's 7 principles. The slogan read, "Unity, purpose, creativity, faith. Heineken beer is proud to celebrate Kwanzaa and everything it stands for." This was something that Karenga had specifically sought to avoid, saying the challenge for the African people is to avoid the problems of commercialization that they've learned from other holidays like Christmas. In fact, one of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa is the importance of a self-sustaining, cooperative economy between African Americans, one that emphasizes Black-owned businesses and discourages mass commercialization. But Kwanzaa's mass marketing appeal was somewhat short-lived. By the mid-2000s, paraphernalia started to disappear from shelves, and many adherents abandoned the holiday as a yearly tradition. Today, only 2% of Americans are believed to celebrate Kwanzaa, despite the fact that African Americans now make up 13% of the population. After 5 decades, Kwanzaa still stands as an important reminder of the historic challenges that Black America has overcome.
Right. So, it's interesting because when we think about the unity, especially in our local community, we saw a demonstration here, in sort of response to the national outcry about injustice. We saw solidarity even in recent events, right, in regards to the Black Lives Matter movement in our local rallies and protests here in the State College.
Definitely. And a local director, Pablo Lopez, captured some of our footage from our 320 Coalition protests that were held in State College over the summer. And he's partnering with Tierra to host a series of community conversations in the new year. So let's watch a clip that he produced recently, and then we'll invite them in to chat and discover what's brewing with black tea.
Absolutely.
Now, you may have heard of Kwanzaa, that celebration.
Are you hearing anything, brothers and sisters?
2020 has been a whirlwind of a year, but what I loved about it most was watching the community come together. It made me feel safe, and I wanted to share that feeling with everyone. Black Tea is a community conversation about race relations in America and here in State College. Ultimately, what I want to showcase are the different perspectives and viewpoints of the Black community here in Center County, as well as to educate and inform all those young minds that want to partake in activism and social and community dialogue. Black Tea was actually created by activists from our very own communities to showcase all the different artists and activists who want to change the world for better. I truly believe that the more we know about each other and the more we're able to showcase those relatable moments to one another, the closer we'll become as a community. The Black community here has so many stories to tell, so many experiences to share, and we'd like you to be a part of it. Black History Month is set in the middle of winter. Even more reason to warm yourself up with some piping hot black tea. We hope to see you there.
Well, you count me in. That makes me very excited. So welcome Pablo and Tierra to the cast here. I'm so excited that this is happening, especially in our community. But I'm also excited that to see Tierra and you, Pablo, actually work together to do this. So I guess we just watched the video. Give us some insight to what Black Tea is all about.
Tierra, would you like me to take this?
You can go first. Yes, it's fine.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. This is my first Kwanzaa event ever, and it's amazing so far, and I'm really enjoying myself and learning a lot. Secondly, Black Tea was created by Tiara. She came up to me and she asked me to help her out. We really wanted to create something that could help elevate the conversations about race in our community, while also kind of embracing all those relatable little moments that we all share together. Hopefully that'll bring in more dialogue from other members of the community so that they can learn as well as we all kind of navigate this tumultuous year that we've all had. I know that I was really caught by the protests that happened this summer, especially with Tiara leading the charge, or at least from what I saw, she was leading the charge, and that really caught me. And I wanted to help out as much as I could. And when she told me her idea for this community conversation, sit down where we ask hard questions, but talk about it as a community and learn about the Black community that's already here in Center County, I knew it was something that we had to run with. And Black Tea was a name that Tiara came up with that we just knew would fit, you know?
It sounds wonderful. That's really exciting. Tiara, tell us about this inspiration for Black Tea and developing deeper conversations.
Well, number one, I just want to say I'm really glad to work with Pablo. I love the name of his company, Dark Mind. I'm in love with Dark Mind Productions, and I definitely was shocked and as well as pleasantly surprised when I found out that there was a small Black-owned production company. One of the principles is keeping sustainability within our community. So that was a big win for me. What I wanted to do was showcase different points of view about the same topic. And that way, maybe everyone around, be it Black or white or of another race, would be able to understand and see that there's more than one layer to a cake. There's more than one layer to an onion, right? And sometimes it's a sweet conversation and sometimes it might not be so sweet. Sometimes it'll make you cry. But these conversations need to be had because there are people in this community who have a different perception and are living a different experience. And if they're not able to express it, then others won't know. And those who aren't living this experience, if they're not able to ask questions or be in an area where they feel comfortable enough to have these questions, to have this dialogue, then I don't see us progressing as a community or as a country for that matter. And so the goal is to try and pretty much like the principles of Kwanzaa, get people together on one page, understand what is our unity, self-determination, our purpose, all of that. And so that was my biggest thought. I brought it to Pablo, and honestly, I brought it to him and I kind of forgot about it a little bit. But when I realized he was ready, I was like, oh yeah, okay, you know what? Let me get on it. We're ready. So I'm really excited. I'm glad that this is a person that I'm working with. He keeps me on my toes. And I'm appreciative of just being able to give this type of information to the community.
I think broadening and deepening and widening the experiences of Black people and people of color in State College will be a welcomed addition to conversations and live streams in the future. I think that's one of the wonderful outgrowths and perks of our community through this virtual platform that we will now be able to do more effectively. And so I am so excited and eager to hear more about your collaboration, both of you. And I think it suits us to talk about it today and to bring in the principle of unity. I think when we deepen our dialogues, we connect to one another a little more authentically. And I think that illustrates the principle of unity. And so I'm excited. What do you hope to accomplish in the new year, Pablo?
Well, me personally, for at least my company, I would like to engage more in, activism, have a section of my company dedicated to, going to protests, making sure that these stories are heard from different parts of our community. And on top of that, creating shows like Black Tea, where we could potentially bring our community to a more nationally known kind of conversation. I think we have a lot of great minds here, a lot of great talent and artists, and I really want to showcase that. And I mean, I bumped into Tiara and she's already been great proof of that.
I think it's going to be so delightful. And I see that you captured some of our wonderful people in our community already. I saw a clip, and I know Errol Henderson is listening today, and he was among us during the protest this summer, as was Charles Dumas, and they're also with us today. So I'm excited about that.
Charles Dumas even said thank you. So, Brother Dumas, good to see you there.
Very good.
But, hey, Pablo, where can people find more about Dark Mind?
Well, you can find us on Facebook at Dark Mind Pro. You'll find all the different updates about black tea as it's being made, even behind the scenes information. You get to know what conversations we're going to be having. We'll even throw up different types of polls to see what the community wants to hear. And we'll also be throwing in different types of interviews that we capture on the street with the people in the community.
Excellent. Well, let me say this: if you can share with us, maybe afterwards, some direct link, we could post it on the State College NAACP. Again, we want to make sure we are getting that word out.
Sounds good.
And making sure that we support one another. Well,
Excellent. And Umoja, unity stresses the importance of togetherness for both family and community. And it's reflected in an African proverb, I am because we are. Those powerful words can inspire us every day. And everyone in our community is responsible for one another. And that taking that work together, we will achieve great things. And this being the first day of Kwanzaa, we are giving that honor to Tiara to please light the first candle that we light in the spirit of Umoja as a symbol of our unity. And we're all taking responsibility this year for our families and our neighbors. Tiara, will you do the honors of lighting our day one candle?
I'm going to turn the camera just a little so you can make sure you see the table. And today is Umoja, representing unity. So you light the black candle, and as you light, you make sure you take the black candle and you go to each side for the next day. But the black candle is lit first, and you go back and forth with the black candle to light the other ones. So I'm so excited to light the candle for unity today, and I hope you guys have a great, great, great Kwanzaa.
Thank you so much, Tiara and Pablo, for joining us. We look forward to hearing more from you in the new year. And we'll see you both for January 1st for our celebration and our lighting ceremony on day 7.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys
Take care. All right. So that's our day 1. We're kicking it off. And to illustrate day 2, everybody's going to pronounce Kuji Chakalia, the principle for self-determination. We will hear from DeAndre Malcolm. He is a public relations chair for the student chapter of the NAACP. And DeAndre will recite Rosa Parks by Nikki Giovanni, and he'll dance to Self-Determination by the artist Fat Word. Terry?
Hello, my name is DeAndre Malcolm, and I'm the Public Relations Chair for the Penn State chapter of the NAACP. Today I'll be reciting Nikki Giovanni's Rosa Parks from Quilting the Black Eyed Pea. This is for the Pullman porters who organized when people said they couldn't.
May I say something to you to give you a true knowledge of yourself and life, so that the same
And carried the Pittsburgh Courier and the Chicago Defender to the Black Americans in the South so they would know they were not alone.
Supreme creature of creation. When man becomes possessor of the knowledge of himself.
This is for the Pullman porters who helped Thurgood Marshall go south and come back north to fight the fight that resulted in Brown versus Board of Education. Because even though Kansas is west, and even though Topeka is the birthplace of Gwendolyn Brooks, who wrote The Powerful, the Chicago Defender sends a man to Little Rock, it was the Pullman porters who whispered to the traveling men, both the blues men and the race men, so that they both would know what was going on. This is for the Pullman porters who smiled as if they were happy and laughed like they were tickled when some folks were around, and who silently rejoiced in 1954 when the Supreme Court announced its 9-0 decision that separate is inherently unequal. This is for the Pullman porters who smiled and welcomed a 14-year-old boy onto their train in 1955. They noticed his slight limp that he tried to disguise with the doo-wop walk. They noticed his stutter and probably understood why his mother wanted him out of Chicago during the summer when school was out. 14-year-old black boys with limps and stutters are apt to try to prove themselves in dangerous ways when mothers aren't around to look after them. So this is for the Pullman porters who looked over that 14-year-old boy while the train rolled the reverse of Blues Highway from Chicago to St. Louis to Memphis to Mississippi. This is for the men who kept him safe, and if Emmett Till had been able to stay on a train all summer, he would have maybe grown a bit of a paunch, certainly lost his hair, probably have worn bifocals, and bounced his grandchildren on his knee, telling them about his summer riding the rails. But he had to get off the train and ended up in Money, Mississippi, and was horribly, brutally, inexcusably, and unacceptably murdered. This is for the Pullman porters who, when the sheriff was trying to get the body secretly buried, got Emmett's body on the northbound train, got his body home to Chicago, where his mother said, "I want the world to see what they did to my boy." And this is for all the mothers who cried. And this is for all the people who said never again. And this is about Rosa Parks, whose feet were not so tired. It had been, after all, an ordinary day until the bus driver gave her the opportunity to make history. This is about Rosa Parks from Tuskegee, Alabama, who was also the field secretary of the NAACP. This is about the moment Rosa Parks shouldered her cross, put her worldly goods aside, was willing to sacrifice her life so that young man in Money, Mississippi, who had been so well protected by the Pullman porters, would not have died in vain. When Mrs. Parks said no, a passionate movement was begun. No longer would there be a reliance on the law, there was a higher law. When Mrs. Parks brought that light of hers to expose the evil of the system, the sun came and rested on her shoulders, bringing the heat and light of truth. Others would follow Mrs. Parks. 4 young men in Greensboro, North Carolina would say no. Great voices would be raised singing the praises of God and exhorting us to forgive those who trespass against us. But it was the Pullman porters who safely got Emmett to his granduncle, and it was Mrs. Rosa Parks who could not stand that death. And in that not being able to stand it, she sat back down.
Wow, this is for Unify the Fight of the Pullman Porter. They were underpaid and overworked and endured consistent racism on their jobs. And Rosa Parks was the secretary of NAACP. That was a really great video, and I'm so happy that young man did that.
It is. I really enjoy the fact that I'm able to pull together these wonderful students and community members who are going to be in these videos for the next 7 days. We are giving you a preview. We've selected a few of them to give you today on day 1 as part of the kickoff, but we're showing you the pillars of self-determination as principle number 2. And that was our student chapter, NAACP, who produced that video. So speaking of pillars of self-determination, another pioneer comes to mind, Mary McLeod Bethune, as a trailblazer for education and equality. And I have a brief clip that I'd like to share with you now, because Mary believed teaching improves lives through education, and she launched a small 6-student school that became an accredited university in 1931. And in 1940, she became vice president of the NAACP. So Terry, share that with us.
Absolutely.
Black History Month on Voice of America, remembering pioneers who paved the way for a better, safer future. Mary McLeod Bethune, a fearless educator, champion for women and racial equality, and in her day, arguably the most powerful African American in the country. Mary McLeod was one of 17 children born to former slaves in South Carolina in the southeastern region of the United States, where she quickly learned that the key to a better life for Black people was education. After graduating high school, she wanted to be a Christian missionary in Africa. Denied the opportunity to go because of her race and seeing a critical need to educate descendants of American slaves, she married and began to teach school. Teaching reinforced Bethune's desire to improve lives through education, and in 1904, with $1.50 and a dream, Mary McLeod Bethune began a small school in Florida. Under Bethune's direction, that 6-student school blossomed into the fully accredited Bethune-Cookman University. Bethune's fierce leadership and drive launched her onto the national scene. First, in leading the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs, then by founding the National Council of Negro Women. In 1936, Bethune became the first African American head of a federal agency when she was appointed the director of the Office of Negro Affairs in the National Youth Administration. Bethune was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame in 1973, and her legacy is also honored in the form of a statue in Washington, D.C. Bethune is the first African American and the first woman to be recognized in this way. A courageous pioneer, social visionary, and a U.S. matriarch, Mary McLeod Bethune.
I love sharing these little nuggets with people. Like I was excited to bring that back to memory and things that we don't really share very often in schools or discussions. I think that's really important to share today.
Well, it's interesting because I did not know about Mary, and and what that's so important is because she was also not just African American but a female, and usually when we talk about these stories, we focus on a lot of male. So it's really nice to bring those types of stories to light. So
Absolutely. I mean, think about that. In 1940, we didn't have a voice, but we had a voice. We had the NAACP, and not only were they champions, but they allowed women to have leadership roles. And these roles have grown into universities. So imagine, this is the seed we need to keep sowing today to bring back all this collective good for the future. So we have also, sorry.
But an arrow there put there that she built a school with $5 in her pocket that became.
With 6 students, became a university and still standing today. So this is really exciting to remember to champion that and to speak to those principles that we embrace, and we have those visions and we can collectively carry them out no matter how big, no matter how small, no matter how challenging. The future belongs to us. Absolutely. So during our NAACP Kwanzaa celebration this week, we have additional contributions that will pop up on YouTube and Facebook. So be sure to like us, be sure to share the links so that you can subscribe and get that information. Additional contributions for self-determination, which is principle for day 2, is Sunday tomorrow, December 27th, and will be shared by Alex Kenny, an MRC counselor at Penn State, who will share an original piece entitled PWI'd, expressing the incongruency and ignorance and the importance of self-determination. Letitia Franklin and Kelly from the Black Graduate Student Association will also offer thoughts about determining culture as a part of self-determination. And our very own Georgianne Williams Rosa will also speak to commitment of living authentically by a means to preserve our ways and our traditions. I think those are going to be dynamic tomorrow, and you're going to want to see them.
Absolutely. So again, remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel and to like the Facebook page.
All right. Do you know principle 3? Ujima. Everybody can repeat Ujima. Right? That's day 3, and it means collective work and responsibility. And it will be represented by a slideshow and a song on Monday, December 28th by Nyla Holland, undergraduate president for the Black Caucus at Penn State.
That's awesome. Yes, and let's build and maintain our community together to make our brothers and our sisters problems, our problems together. Exactly. That's the most important piece.
So we do need to solve those problems together.
Right. And looking at that principle of collective work and responsibility, it calls on us to reframe our relationships and our responsibilities to each other, our ancestors, and into our future generations. We should share the responsibility for building the community, societies, and what we want that we deserve to live in, and definitely, making sure that we have a caring and cooperative and a just world. That's what this is really all about. And most importantly, Leslie, is to make sure that we have a self-consciousness and sustained struggle that embraces diversity, seeks justice, and provides equality for all people. We can heal our communities through these types of engagements.
Absolutely, Terry. And we roll through and we will continue the week, and we will, on Tuesday, December 29th, the next principle is Ujamaa, cooperative economics. And our very own NAACP member, Savita Iyer, will recite The Open Letter to the South by Langston Hughes.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Ujima teaches us to support one another and to build Black businesses that benefit the whole community, like a university. Imagine that.
Right.
History reminds us that one of the most prosperous and affluent and self-sustaining African American communities began in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and was the place of the worst race riots in the history of the United States. More than 35 square blocks of predominantly Black neighborhoods in Greenwood were destroyed in 2 days of rioting, and nearly 300 people died. And it will mark the 100th year on June 18th in 2021. That's our Black Wall Street massacre in 1921. It took nearly 80 years for the government to even acknowledge the incident occurred, and it remains a critical part of our history that still gets overlooked in our school curriculums today, and another example of America's long overdue need for reparations that are owed to Black Americans. And I have a clip that I want to share. So Terry, roll that clip.
Absolutely.
We generally call it the catastrophe because we feel like it wasn't a riot. We were not the perpetrators, we were the victims. But it took 80 years to get the state of Oklahoma to acknowledge that.
The Tulsa Race Massacre is believed to be one of the worst incidents of racial violence in American history. From May 31st to June 1st in 1921, as many as 300 people were killed, hundreds were injured, and thousands of buildings were destroyed.
On June 1st, they began to systematically destroy neighborhoods, and they had airplanes dropping things down on people's houses, and they had made up their minds to clear the entire area of Black people.
It started after a newspaper reported a Black man tried to sexually assault a white woman. Though it's still uncertain what exactly happened, many did not believe that story. The Oklahoma Historical Society said the most common explanation is Dick Rollins stepped on Sarah Page's foot when he entered the elevator, causing her to scream. A group of armed Black men went to the courthouse to offer help protecting Rollins once they heard talks of lynching. A crowd of white men was also on the scene. A shot was fired and the riots began.
My parents were very distressed because here they are with 5 kids, and the schools had been. I went to Dunbar School, and that was reduced to just rubble. I mean, they blew it up.
Crowds of white rioters went to the Greenwood district, known as Black Wall Street. It was home to an affluent African-American community with banks, hotels, theaters, and new homes.
They took my 8-year-old brother, too, where they were holding all the Black men. And we didn't know, because we lived on one side of town and they lived on the other. We thought they were locking up the non-Blacks, too. But it so happened that it didn't occur that way. What they did was to disarm and lock up all Black men. And then they said to the mob, there's nothing out there now but women and children, so you can do whatever you want to do. And that was when the real terrible things started to happen.
It ended when the city was placed under martial law and National Guard troops were deployed. But Black Wall Street was devastated. Survivors never received compensation for what they lost.
You know,
It is really overwhelming to think about that part in our history again.
yeah, I could go on and on about Black Wall Street. That was one of the areas that I became somewhat obsessed with over the past decade or so. And the lady that was in the video, Dr. Olivia Hooker, recently just passed away not that long ago at the age of 100. I believe she's 101 years old. And I believe she lived that long to make sure that story got told.
And I'm so grateful that we have that coverage and we can remind people today. As Dr. Karanga said, it's our task to know our past and to honor it, to engage our present and improve it, and to imagine a good future and to forge it together.
Now, talk about determination. I don't know if you knew this, Leslie, but Dr. Olivia Hooker, she went on to become the first African-American female to serve in the U.S. Coast Guard, which she actually volunteered to her very last days. And if you go to New York, the Coast Guard of New York, they have a nice mural of her in their building to commemorate her. So great story. People should look it up, Dr. Olivia Hooker.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think we
Yeah.
have
So
some
moving,
additional. Uh-huh. Go
yeah.
ahead.
So yeah, moving forward. I know that we're talking about our schedule. I look forward to Wednesday. That's when our dear friend Andre Cooper, from the president of the FOBA, the Forum on Black Affairs, will join us, as well as our brother Charles Dumas, a former professor from the School of Theater here at Penn State and local activist and actor, and of course our beloved elder. And they're going to speak on the Principle 5, NIA, which is the purpose. I look forward to that as well.
Yes. And I have the pleasure, and I'm going to give everybody another sneak preview of what comes up for day 6, Kwanzaa, Kuumba. It is creativity. And so it's my pleasure right now, of course, to introduce our friend and colleague, Kikora Franklin. She's the associate professor at Theater Dance for Penn State, and she's also the associate director for equity, diversity, and inclusion at the Penn State School of Theater. And she's going to share Keepers of the Legacy, a short poem and a dance tribute in celebration of day 6. So we're going to give you a sneak preview of day 6.
Absolutely.
In this season of Kwanzaa, we celebrate Kuumba, creativity. We are keepers of the legacy. We are reflections of our past, present, and future. Black people, who do we want to be? What will we make of this time, this space, this land, this opportunity? Behold the gifts our ancestors gave: life, love, family, and community. We celebrate their spirit. We celebrate our culture, Kuumba, creativity. It is time for us to rise up and become who God intended us to be. We are makers, creators. We are innovators, keepers of our ancestors' legacy. We celebrate Kuumba, creativity.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And you know, that was a sneak preview of day six. I think we have a couple of videos that we're going to sort of premiere on day six. So,
Yeah, because it's the
so please,
Karamu, it's the feast, it's New Year's Eve. We're supposed to be partying, but clearly COVID has prevented that.
COVID prevented a lot of stuff, you know. So traditionally on the sixth day, there is, like Leslie mentioned, a big feast, and it corresponds with New Year's Eve. And so we hope you will invite others to tune in to show this to view our four videos, and that will be posted on that day, Thursday, December 31st, which again will demonstrate creativity. So one of the first videos that we're going to have is with Billy Grace and Joshua Griffin, and they're going to illustrate Umba through the arts. We also going to have creativity being demonstrated by Professor and Chair Department of Health Management and Policy at St. Louis University, Dr. Rhonda Ballou, and her daughter Fatu, both former Penn State family who relocated to Minnesota. So I can't wait to have that poetry shown on our platform. Um,
Yeah, I think it'll be
yeah.
great. And then finally on Friday, the week wraps up with New Year's Day, which is day 7, and we'll celebrate
Mhm.
Imani. We'll celebrate faith, which has always been the bedrock of commitment and trust. This will be illustrated by contributions submitted by Carice, Soraya, Shani, and Pastor Sharon McKenzie of Unity Church of Jesus Christ in State College.
Absolutely. We hope that you enjoy exploring the 7 principles with us in Kwanzaa. And so I want to take some time to look at the folks who are still watching us. Um, and guys, tell me, which principle are you looking forward to most to celebrate this year? Go ahead
Yeah,
and put that
shout
in the
out
chat
in the
box.
chat box, the Nguzu Saba, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Which one
Yes.
is resonating with you for the new year?
And
Terry, I
again, I
think
want
you
to
wanted to
remind.
remind him. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to remind. You better believe it. I want to. If I haven't made this clear, I want to remind folks to definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the Facebook page, because we are going to post these videos as premieres, right? So they're going to premiere. I believe we're going to do them at what time, Leslie?
Noon, every day at noon, there'll be a new video released. And we hope that you will think about it. There's also a secret, quiet, on the down low, restricted, social distancing with masks, our lighting ceremony at State College MLK Plaza. We're going to stream that live on New Year's Day at 4 p.m. And we have about a dozen Kwanzaa books to give away, and perhaps some little sweet individual mini pies representing our wonderful feast too. So we have a lovely book, Kwanzaa, a progressive African American holiday, that will be given out for those brave souls who braved down in the cold. And we'll watch Lorraine and Tiara and 3 performances in the MLK Plaza. So stay tuned and stay with us all week long.
Now, I say, because you and I are going to be here broadcasting it live virtually. I hope one of our fair NAACP brothers or sisters bring us some sweet treats. I was going to put it out there for those who are watching who will be there. You know, we got some folks chiming in. Thank you for, I know we had Charles Dumas who mentioned Nia, of course. You know, we have some self-determination. You know, self-determination is one of those things that I think that we don't talk a lot about in our community that we really should. And what does that really mean for the progression of African Americans and definitely our society as a whole? So I'm glad to see that one. Who else we got here? Oh, we
Stay in front
have.
of your mic, Terry. We
Sorry,
can't
we
hear you.
have Marcy. We got Marcy here saying that she love us. We love you too, Marcy. We love you too.
Wonderful. And I hope that we're doing a great job sharing the understanding and cultural significance of Kwanzaa and the 7 principles, because it's our sincere hope that the community will join us in practicing the 7 principles of Kwanzaa throughout this new year. We wanted to resurrect it as part of the NAACP to give it some more flair, some more flavor, and to incite and motivate everybody to embrace the principles and see if we can't manifest them together in the new year. So we're going to remember that tomorrow is Sunday. It will be day 2. Kuji Chakalia. I saw Errol's comment across saying that was his favorite, which is self-determination. And I want to
Yes.
I want to remind everybody, what we plant, we harvest. I want to say a shout out to Jennifer, who said that to me earlier when I needed encouragement about putting this show together. And she wrote beautiful words to me. What we plant, we harvest. Therefore, let us all sow seeds of unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith throughout the new year. And we
Absolutely.
couldn't, okay, this is my treat for me and all of you who know me. Um, I couldn't bring a kickoff celebration, Christmas and Kwanzaa and New Year's without selecting a special treat that's near and dear to my heart for, like, I don't know, decade. And I selected to share A Soulful Celebration by Quincy Jones. You may recall that this was an amazing arrangement of Black musical forms, beginning with an overture of African drumming. It continued with spirituals. It has ragtime. It has 70s dance tracks, even contemporary hip hop.
You know what kills me is this was, and I was saying this to Leslie. This was my era of music. This is when I was playing, I was performing, and I haven't heard of this. And when Leslie shared it with me, I was like, wait a minute, where did this come from? And if anyone knows me, they know I'm a huge fan of jazz. I love Quincy Jones, and the fact of the matter is, this one somehow escaped me. Out of all the Quincy Jones records and albums, this one escaped me somehow. So I was jamming out for the last couple of days to this track.
I don't know how
Really,
you missed it, Terry, because this album received Grammy Awards, and it was a great example of our collective work, our responsibility, and collective economics and faith and unity. It is
and
amazing.
creativity.
And creativity, correct. It is a radical remake of an 18th century Handel's Messiah, and it featured more than 80 Black artists like Patty Austin, Stevie Wonder, Al Jarreau, Take Six, Sounds of Blackness. Even the
Oh my
Harlem
God.
Boys Choir is in it. I mean,
And
it's an all-star take on the Hallelujah Chorus, which is my all-time favorite song. And I just knew that it was a great way to kick off Kwanzaa.
Take Six, one of my favorite all time a cappella groups. And somehow it escaped me. So I don't know what happened, but
Well, for all
yeah.
those out there, if you've never heard A Soulful Celebration, this is our way as a people celebrating ourselves, celebrating our music, celebrating our African influence from slave songs, spirituals, jazz, blues, gospel, R&B, and they were all born out of our African American experience. And our contributions to this country and the world at large continue to be just as significant. So we're going to play
Absolutely.
this so everybody can enjoy a little celebratory music along with the educational content that we have now promoted this day for Kwanzaa. So
And,
hit it, Terry.
and in the chat box, if you're like me and it's your first time hearing it, please put it so I don't feel too bad, okay? Because this is a wonderful piece. So without
It is.
that,
It's
let's
wonderful.
play this song. Wow.
Hallelujah. And he shall reign forever. It is amazing. I don't know how anybody can embrace the spirit of that song. Quincy Jones and 80 other artists did an amazing work. It still stands today. And I just want to shout all the time when I hear that song.
I tell you what, the fact that most of my favorite groups from the '90s were in that track, and somehow it missed me.
You
I don't
don't
know
have to
what.
miss it ever again. I play it every season. Alana knows. It gets on there the day
Yeah,
after Thanksgiving and it doesn't
I
stop.
think I'm going. I think I'm gonna follow our dear sister Georgianne and have it on
That's
repeat
right.
even after Christmas. Maybe even
Absolutely.
after New Year.
Well, asante sana. Thank you a lot to all of the community members who have contributed their videos. I thank you so much. We look forward to the contributions of the live performances on New Year's Day, and we thank the State College Borough and the MLK Plaza Planning Committee and the Community Diversity Group for their donations and support of our wonderful Kwanzaa program. And of course, Terry, we have to do a shout out and thank all of our viewers. And remember to tune in daily for those video premieres on the State College NAACP YouTube channel this week.
Absolutely. And again, I want to remind everyone to please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please look in for the videos that pop up, like the Facebook page, and just for the fun of it, I think Leslie, just because I actually do like that song very much now, and I think it's appropriate for us to go out on that one. So let's see if this
We
works
are
out
saying
well.
Happy Kwanzaa from the State College
Oh,
NAACP.
let's see if I can do this properly now, because I think what people didn't see was you jamming out in the background.
Ooh, don't show them that video. They know. Anybody who's familiar with me knows, and I was probably signing and carrying on. So it's great. I love it. So
It's all good.
thank you,
Thank
all of
thank you.
you. Happy Kwanzaa from
Enjoy.
the State College NAACP, and tune in daily for our video premieres for each one of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa.
And let's play it out. Happy Kwanzaa, folks.